Hello, everybody. Can everybody hear me? One of those things, got to make sure of the beginning of every stream is that you can all hear me. I take it by your silence. Yeah, okay, I got it. Yeah, okay, cool. Hello, everybody. I am Sam Guayana. I'm a producer, engineer, mixer from Toronto, Canada. And today I'm going to do the second in my series of mix breakdowns. A song called Lottery by band Romancer from Southern Ontario. One of my hands down favorite bands to come out of Southern Ontario in a very long time. They keep up that tradition of being incredible and super talented. Literally all four of them are just the most talented people you've ever witnessed in your life. And they're all in the same band, which is pretty sweet. So, without further ado, I'm going to play you a little bit of this song. I produced and mixed this, so it was completely tracked at my studio. We'll go into how I tracked it a little bit today, too. And yeah, let's take a listen. I'll play up to about the first verse.
Bodies like these, both of us high, words come out slow. You melt into me like how autumn leaves pushed down by snow. Our bodies sleep, both of us high, words come out slow. You melt into me like how autumn leaves pushed down.
Yeah! This is hands down one of my favorite songs I've ever got to work on. It's a re-record from their first record. But what was fun about it was we didn't just re-record it, we reproduced the song from the beginning. So we went through, we, trimmed the fat, we made the less interesting parts more interesting. What was nice is they came very prepared with a vision, and that stuff's always nice. They took it seriously. They do take it very seriously. So it is a very fun time. This song is super interesting to me, too. I did a lot of very fun creative automation on the vocals. Adam's one of the best vocalists I've ever recorded, so it was very fun to sort of abuse him and put him through the, ringer of doing just incredible vocal stuff. Plus, he's down with all of that, too, which is incredible. He's very open to pretty much any idea you toss his way. Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about this song. We'll start from the top. In terms of drums, I didn't do a lot of things I did in the last video. There are no crash dubs or things like that. Obviously, a little bit of a bass drop when the last chorus drops. Very little tambo, which, if you know me at all, is a strange thing. But yeah, I just felt it didn't need it. I felt the song was very strong on its own. It held up, and yeah. So let's talk about the drums a little bit. The drums here were recorded in my studio here at Room 21 Sound. I did a mono room, but I don't think it was the hallway. I don't think I was doing the hallway room yet. Yeah, no, it's more of a trashy mono room. It was this mono. It was probably, I was obsessed with putting a U87 in the corner of the room for a little while. So chances are it was that, like facing the wall kind of far away. And then the ribbons are probably an XY pair, sort of low to get rid of the sibilance because the room is so small. two play very well together, which is nice. This is before I figured out the hallway thing. So what's interesting about this is you're going to see how I do drum verbs based on that, which honestly isn't too much different than the last video. Once I start getting into videos with the hallway, you'll see some more interesting stuff. In this song, I only printed a kick and snare trigger. I didn't feel the need to trigger the toms. And yeah, let's start working backwards. So I mixed this a little while ago. By the look of it, I mixed it before Pro Q3 was out because all the EQs are Pro Q2. So you won't see much dynamic. Actually, you won't see any dynamic EQing in this mix. You'll pretty much just see me doing what I needed to do per track to take care of everything, as you know, every mixer does. I do wish I had the dynamic EQ because there's clearly some spikes in that overhead, in those overheads that I would have loved to sort of just handle when they happened instead of, you know, bulk taking them out, as you can sort of see over here. And then, yeah. The samples in this song are only there to add a bit of room and a bit of consistency through it. I wasn't heavily relying on them as much as I rely on samples normally in my mix. It might sort of sound that way, but you'd be surprised how much heavy lifting the actual real snare drum is doing. That's no sample there. And then bringing the snare in. It's just filling in the gap that I couldn't get out of the real snare. And same with the kick drum, although the kick drum's probably pretty heavy duty in this. I'm seeing some questions about the samples. In this song, I don't particularly remember what I used. I printed them down. Let me see if I've got them. Do I not have them anymore? Yeah, I don't think I actually kept the settings I used after I printed them down. Oh, yeah, kick trigger, snare trigger. Hold up, we'll take a peek. They are probably a blend of some Slate things. There's just good consistency. Yeah, this is sort of my go-to. That's a kick sample of mine that I made 2009. And then just some rooms to sort of fill it in. Heavy duty lifting though seems to be kick 10. Everybody laughs at kick 10, but you know what? There's a reason everybody uses it. Yeah, here we go. Just the fun little... The dong doing the heavy lifting. If you know anything about the Slate samples, the CLA pack, the dong is such an expressive little snare. But this snare is doing a lot of the work, and this is actually a sample I made when I recorded a band called Arbor's Lane, I think. It says 2017, but I'm pretty sure it was 2016. It's just a 4-shot round robin. Do you do a lot of processing on the samples before printing them? Do you mean when I'm making a TCI, or do you mean when I'm before I print them into my mix? Because when I made this TCI, chances are I processed it slightly. Actually, I can check right now. That's probably how I tracked it on the way in. That's just 4 hard hits being cycled through. I tracked that. Yeah, I tracked that on the way in, so I definitely had a little bit of EQ and compression on the way into that. Probably added a little bit of transient designer to that before I printed it down just to get it a little more even. But no, I don't process the samples like I do my mix processing here, but when I'm actually printing the samples, I commit up to this insert right here on Pro Tools. So I'm only printing down the raw kick and snare triggers as they're coming out of trigger instead of keeping the processing on. Because there's times where I will want to, maybe make an EQ adjustment, and I don't want to lob EQ onto EQ that's already there. I'll usually go back and sorry, I gotta turn myself up a bit. I'll usually go back and deal with it in another way. This one, I treated the drum verb a little differently than the last mix. I don't think I'm just sending overheads. Chances are what happened was when I started sending just the overheads, I wasn't getting enough beef out of it. I wasn't getting enough of room sound being sent to that reverb. So what I ended up doing was pre-fadering a little bit of kick and snare in there as well. Yeah, see, just peppering the snare in just for some. And the toms. So it sounds like a more full fake room instead of just... Yeah, it's important to me when you have a small room. It's important to really spend the time on making your reverb sound good. It's really tough. We're on sort of this like uphill battle with small rooms. And it's something that you just sort of need to, really hone in on, make the sound the way you want. In this one, I didn't do any EQ after the drum verb, but like, don't be afraid to EQ after your drum verb and things like that. Like anything that kind of makes the result better, you should do. Like, there's no reason to not. Tips for getting MIDI drums to sound real. I should probably do a song with MIDI drums, but the biggest tip I'm going to give you to make MIDI drums sound real is spend a stupid amount of time on the cymbals. Hi-hats are a dead giveaway of fake drums. So listen to different packs, find a pack that you really like the cymbal sound of, because that's the most important thing at the end of the day. I mean, kicks and snares tend to sound fairly fake these days, even in modern recordings, or like, quote unquote, very high quality, like very like slick sounding. And you can get away with that. Obviously make dynamic, build dynamic in the MIDI with fills and things like that. But for the most part, if you're railing hard on kicks and snares through heavy parts in the song, you're fine. It's the cymbals that are going to be the dead giveaway, and especially the hi-hats. Yeah, fake cymbals are super tough. I use the Slate stuff, and sometimes I use Modern and Massive. Not Modern and Massive. Matt Halpern, the Get Good Drums Matt Halpern 2.0. Both of those have pretty good cymbals. You won't think they will, but they will. You just need to spend a lot of time on it. Way more time than you'd ever consider spending. So yeah, I'm going to play the drums as a whole. I'm going to talk about processing the drum track, what I'm doing on the master bus or mix bus in this song. Yeah, so let's start with the mix bus now that I'm over here, just to go over this quick. Felt like the API console was the vibe for this song. Again, like I was doing in the last mix, I've only got virtual mix bus going on my four like heavy duty buses: drums, bass, guitar, vocals, and then my mix bus. FG Gray, I was still on the FG Gray kick back then. It looks like I played with faster release settings on this. I think I wanted the song to feel more push-pull than just like an auto glue to the master. I wanted that movement to stay intact, especially with the tempo. And then Air EQ, which I don't use at all anymore. But I did some just general heavy lifting. The cool thing about Air EQ, not that it's used much these days, is their presets aren't presets. They're just setups, and then you can tweak from there. So the mastering balance, I probably wanted to see what a sort of mastering balance EQ would look like on a song like this. So I dialed it in, and then I pulled the strength back, this is basically a parallel knob for the air EQ. Yeah, and it's just peppered in there, just a little bit of light lifting, and Slade VTM at the typical master bus setting. 30 IPS, 2-track tape, the FG9 tape. Hitting it just enough to handle those little peaks and actually get the tape vibe out of it. And yeah. All right, so back to the drums for a sec. So I didn't do anything really special in this song. I mostly just, I wanted to keep it a little rawer than most of the stuff I work on. It's important with expressive drumming to really keep dynamics intact. So when you see fills like this, like these snares here aren't even being triggered. What you're hearing in that fill is real drum entirely, and the big reason for that is that's how you keep dynamic in some of these. Yes, Nathan is a shred drummer. I've recorded him a few times now, and he is one of the best dynamic players. He takes feedback very well. He just makes everything sound super great. I'm impressed with myself on that stereo spread on the overheads. Yeah, overheads, I did my typical cleanup, just took care of what I needed to take care of, and probably added a little bit of compression right after that. Oh, yes, that fill gets me every time too. I could literally just listen to that fill on repeat. That's like the iconic fill in this song. I remember when we were talking even about mixing notes and things like that, it was super important that stayed intact. And obviously, like when you have a fill like that, it just sets up that chorus so well. One thing I want to talk about quick in this song that's very exciting to me is we change tempo throughout the song just by a few BPM here and there. And a big reason for that, I do this in a lot of my productions. A big reason I do that is to, again, basically it's all about building dynamic. I want the chorus to hit a little bit harder, so I slow it down by just a few BPM. Not much, just a little bit where, especially when you have this big rock and fill that leads up to it, all of a sudden you feel this heavy chorus kick in. You don't know what changed. You think obviously it feels heavy because of the tempo and the halftime vibe of it, but really this little tempo change really helps. And you don't hear it, you mostly feel it. You're back at that other tempo and you don't even know it. Yeah, those sort of things are very important in my production style. And a lot of people do it too. I'm not like, it's not some revolutionary thing. It's just a very well-paced way to keep the song moving and keep it interesting. Fun things I did on the drums in this song. There's a big drum plate that kicks in and out at different times. Just checking where it mutes. Yeah. Its purpose is solely just to make things sound bigger. Hold up, I'm gonna find where it actually happens before I talk about it. Big ol' hit right before the last chorus. Yes, please. Love stuff like that. One more time. Yeah. By the look of it, I had it written in here, but I probably killed it because it was stepping on a vocal or something like that. So I wanted to touch a little bit on the drum production and mixing in particular, because it's tough. It's tough not to talk about the production in this song because I produced it, but I really want to talk about mix tips with these sort of videos. It's not a big deal for every single sample not to be triggered. The important thing is to really focus on keeping the dynamic intact. And if something like that means keeping the snare rolls real and then only triggering the hard hits, don't be afraid to do that. Don't feel like every time you hear a snare, the snare has to have a sample. However, when you gate things, sometimes gates can be a little tricky. So I usually automate my gate to turn off during rolls and things like that. You can see that the snare samples start here, but audibly you can't really tell because of this little ramp in happening. And these things are super important. Yeah, it's those kind of moves that really make, really separate an amateur mix from something else. And then another super fun thing, I'm going to roll to the volume section of this, was having this little movement. This song ends. I'll play the whole ending first, and then we'll talk about it, because it's got this really cool vibe where the entire song just becomes a bit of chaos. And then it dries right back up for those last 4 hits, which to me, every time I hear this, I still get chills. It's one of my favorite things I've ever done in a mix. Just pure excitement for me. Whenever I hear little things like that in mixes, I get so happy. And whenever I do little things like that in mixes, I'm proud I took the time to do them. And if you look at it, basically the entire song has some sort of crazy automation happening up into that big ending. Vocals dipping out for other vocals to come in, different delays starting at that time, all that fun stuff. All right, I'm going to move on from drums just because a lot of the moves I made on toms and things like that are fairly similar to the last time, especially on the snare drum and everything. A big difference is I probably have tape head on a lot of these channels. I was really obsessed with tape head when I was working on this mix. But yeah, same sort of scoops in toms and things like that. Weird that I did this EQ first and then the other one, but probably I was just playing around with different things and stuck with what rolled. Oh, you know what? I'm going to talk about the rooms really quick. Doing the small room thing, you get a lot of buildup in cymbals. One of the great things you can do to compensate for that is de-essers on room mics. Basically dynamic EQ, probably something I would have done with the Pro Q3 had I had it at the time. Oh yeah, I'm doing a bunch of crazy stuff. But I did it. Oops, I did it with the RDSer instead. I know I've just deleted the Pro Q2. Don't tell anybody. My verbs are the same settings as last time. I don't have the roll off on this, and I probably figured out that I could roll it off on the EQ afterwards, so I'm doing it here. Oh, yeah, talking about that big boomy verb. Adam, I love you, but get out of here. That was Little Plate, which was a free plugin for a while, but now it's a few bucks. It is probably one of the best plate reverbs ever. Oh, it's not pre-fader. Such a good reverb for those style of things. I'm using a few of them across this song basically for that exact idea. Bass. Ben is one of the most talented and fun and creative bassists I've ever recorded. He's really good at taking an idea in someone's head and playing it on the bass guitar. Really percussive bassist, which I always love. I think this is a jazz bass on here too, which isn't always my vibe, but I love them. Oh, you can see here, I was talking about it a little bit in the last video. I love this heavy compression on the way in on bass guitar. And yeah, I use the LA610, or not LA610, just a regular 610, and a hairball blue stripe after that. Yeah, such tasty little riffs. And again, no amp. The bass on this is BOD. A little bit of cleanup happening. And more squeeze. Yeah, I won't lie. Even listening back to that bass DI, I am shocked at how incredible it sounds. I like using compressors on bass on the way in because it helps just to add that extra attack that you don't always get from, certain players and things like that. Not that I wouldn't have gotten this attack from Ben, but it's very nice to just have that extra thing, especially with jazz basses, because the way they are is they're so scoopy and percussive to begin with that adding this just gives it even more of a spit, even more of a character, Yeah, nothing super fancy in the bass in this song. He's really just holding on the back end with with Nathan there. Drum and bass correlation in this song was hella important. It's super important in this band. They basically carry each other while everything else sort of happens along the top of it. All right, guitars I'm really excited to talk about. I think we recorded this with a Kemper. It was probably fairly recent that I got my Kemper, but during mixing of this song, I was not happy with the Kemper tones. I ended up going back, reamping this entire song with a plugin called 11, which is basically Avid's amp sim. I learned pretty quickly that Massey Tapehead is a really great way to get DI guitars, or not DI, but amp sim guitars. You take the amp sim edge off of it a little bit. This one plugin alone is doing so much heavy lifting on the guitars, it's insane. It's basically shaping the guitar tone more than any EQ would. It gets rid of a lot of the annoying stuff, and then this is just, I wanted to remake a bit of the brightness it killed. Still want to get rid of a bit of whistly bits. add a bit more boost, low end boost to it. I think this trim is probably automated to drop the guitar out on a certain spot a little bit. Yeah, there we go. And this pre-chorus, this lead guitar comes in. That one little move alone there really makes the space for that lead guitar to happen. In this song, I did one of my all-time favorite production things that I do in a lot of things. This overdrive guitar at the beginning, which I also love the tone of. Is doubled with an acoustic just tucked in there. It gives it the sound of like almost like you hear the strings of the guitar. Like it's not supposed to be an acoustic as much as it's supposed to be a percussive element. Yeah, it was super important to have that acoustic just happen when it needs to. And again, all the leads in this song, all the cleans, everything, I'm pretty sure was 11. Even this little ambient pad. That pad is actually a ton of things. It is 2 reverbs, it's 2 reverbs, a delay, 11 free, which I think is hilarious, and little plate again. And I wonder if there's even more happening after that. Pro Q2, yep, just cleaning up some crap, and then a tremolator that happens later in the bridge. But yeah, this is one of my favorite sounds I've ever made. Literally what he's playing is just and from that you create an incredible soundscape. In the sort of spoiled it there. In the bridge, I have a tremolator on with the drum roll that just kicks in. A tremolator, that's the name of the plugin. A tremolo plugin that just kicks in when it needs to in that spot. No, I don't ever use external IRs. Unless I'm trying to get a very, very, very specific thing. I recently got Zilla, the Get Good one, and it's fine. But one of the cool things in it is there is a cab IR for like a room mic, like a super distant, far away room mic. That is super, super convincing. So what I'll do sometimes is whatever amp sim I'm using, if I want that like out of room guitar sound, I'll duplicate it. I'll turn the cab off, and I'll put that Zilla cab, the Zilla room cab on there. And the reason I'm doing that is just to get that idea there, that like guitars tucked in the back of a room thing. Yeah, the leads on this song were very fun. Like I said, they were such a creative band. Riley and Adam do this incredible thing where they play off of each other's parts very well. So normally I'm not like, normally when I record, I always want everybody kind of layered together. Like I love the, stereo image of everything, but with this band, I let them sort of get away with just left and rights being different because it adds it's their sound, and I never want to like cripple their sound. Yeah, in a band like this, it's like super important to make sure that they're expressing each other properly. And in those two parts, it's very you can see like they're playing basically different voicings of the exact same thing. Little tricks I did on the guitars was in this reintro here. I want to get lo-fi for a sec, so I pulled out the most aggressive plugin in the world to do that. Switched its lo-fi switch, backed off its ridiculous amount of compression. Even played with the mix. I guess it was a little too crazy, and then probably did a little bit more. Oh yeah, just taking off some top end. One of my favorite guitar things I've ever done was this little wall of sound, which was the idea to play out with the outro of the whole thing. This bunch of gnarly, crazy feedback. These are all real amps too, because this stuff is much easier to get done with a real amp. Just this like warbly guitars, feedback guitars, 2 DL6s, which is like the best delay pedal ever. Well, no, it's not, but it did the trick here. And everybody goes away for those last 4 scratches. Alrighty, I am going to talk a little bit about, the guitars. Honestly, I track a lot, or I take care of my EQs really quick. I never over EQ guitars or do anything. When I found that the 11 was a little crazy, I reached for something to tame it, and then I just did typical moves for what I was missing after I did that. Same thing goes on these overdrive guitars. These cleans, I was getting rid of annoying sounds. Lead guitars literally just have a Pro Q E2, Pro Q2. Again, just doing cleanup in certain spots, getting rid of the annoying stuff. Oops. Tracks don't even have EQ. Like I liked the tone, so I rolled with it. And then that ambient guitar track I was talking about, I printed. The acoustics are nothing special. Acoustics are obviously like really great tools. If you're doing an acoustic song, it's important to get the acoustics being a certain way. If you're doing a song like if you're doing something with the acoustics where you're trying to just kind of have them be expressive, or like have them beef up the main guitar. You don't have to go super nuts. Yeah, I just wanted them brighter by the sound of it. I wanted them a little nicer. Okay, cool. I'm very excited to talk about the vocals in this song. The production, the mixing, all of it is such an incredible experience. So I'm going to go through this part by part here a little bit. This intro, super soft. I'm going to touch really quick on my vocal chain for this entire thing. Vocal chain was a Neve preamp into an 1176, probably my vintage 87 or regular 87, or whatever was around at the time. Actually, probably the regular 87. Into Neve with some EQ on the way in, some compression on the way in, which you can see a little crazier on the heavier parts. And then just, honestly, I pulled this up and I laughed when I opened this session. This VMR channels here, it is doing nothing. I don't know why I have it here. I probably loaded it to be like, hey, I'm going to do stuff to the vocal. And then when I started mixing, I didn't. And then a Rouser 6-1 probably. Yeah, exactly. A Rouser 6-1. I think I just got a Rouser at this point, so I wasn't doing a crazy amount of stuff with it.
I wanna waste away with you. Make myself numb.
Adam is an incredibly expressive vocalist, so my goal is to not over compress him. But with my style of really aggressive compression, you have to make that work.
Bodies like leaves, both of us high, words come out slow. You melt into me like how autumn leaves get pushed down by snow. Our bodies leave, both of us high, words come out slow. You melt into me like how autumn leaves get pushed down. I wanna waste away. Bodies like leaves, both of us high, words come out slow. You melt into me like how autumn leaves get pushed down by snow. Our bodies leave, both of us high, words come out slow. You melt into me like how autumn leaves get pushed down.
Yeah, it is super important with a singer like this to keep his dynamic intact. I've gotten many comments when people have heard this song thinking that there's multiple vocalists throughout it, and that's just Adam's range. Like, he's one of those guys who can basically make his voice sound however he wants. When you listen to something crazy like this,
Then it's a quiet ride home. Bodies like leaves, both of us high, words come out slow. You melt.
there are other, Riley does sing, their guitarist does sing in this song. He's doing some of my favorite one-note style harmonies, which I love sneaking into choruses.
Our bodies leave, both of us high, words come out slow. You melt into me like how autumn leaves get pushed down by snow. You and I were winning the lottery. You and I. If it's spoken from your eyes, but the words are buried still, and it's a quiet ride home. And it's spoken from your eyes, but the words are buried still, then it's a quiet ride home. Bodies like leaves, both of us high, words come out slow.
Man, sorry, I got lost there. I love just listening to that. That is some of my favorite vocal arrangement and production I've ever had the opportunity to work on. Yeah, Nathan, same. I honestly, I'm floored every time I listen to this song. It's one of those songs to me that transcends itself, basically. Anyways, I want to talk a little bit about these little fun things here that you see. So whenever I want to do like a vocal throw or something, this song didn't have typical vocal throws. It had lengthening little ideas that happen.
Now till all I can feel is you. All I wanna feel it.
Right after I said that, of course, that one's very throwy, where it's just a delay.
Feel is you. All I
But the this one here, which I think gets automated, was super important to lead into that bridge.
were winning the lottery. You and I. If it's spoken.
Where it's still a throw, but what I did was just use a little piece of it. Using a little piece of that note to establish only establishes the tail of that and really like lengthens it in a pretty way. And it's mostly just this Manny American delay doing the trick. This is going to the regular reverb, which the same reverb settings I use almost all the time in sessions. And in context, it's really interesting. You see how it sets up the delicacy of this bridge when it shows up.
If it's spoken from your eyes, but the words are buried still, and it's a quiet ride home. And it's spoken from your eyes, but the words are buried still.
Yeah, it's very important to build those little parts in a mix. Basically, however you can make them move. There's ahs happening. Actually, the ahs only happen in the end in this song, but they are incredible. They add so much space. I'm gonna go back to just playing the vocals here.
Pushed down by snow, you and I were winning the lottery. You and I were winning the lottery. You and I were winning the lottery. You and I make myself numb till all I can feel is you.
Oh my goodness. What a ridiculously amazing thing. This outro has some of my favorite harmonies I've ever recorded.
You and I were winning. You and I were winning the lottery. Our bodies leave, both of us high. Words come out slow. You melt into me like how autumn leaves get pushed down by snow. You and I were.
It's super important to me as a producer to build dynamic through every chorus. So when you listen to anything I've produced, there's a good chance that the first chorus has very few harmonies or just, supporting harmonies.
Slow. You melt into me like how autumn leaves get pushed down by snow. Our bodies leave both of
And something like a second chorus where you bring in a few extra.
our bodies leave both of us high. Words come out slow. You melt into me like how autumn leaves get pushed down.
And then this third chorus.
Our bodies leave both of us high. Words come out slow. You melt into me like how autumn leaves get pushed down by snow. You and
I want to touch really quick on these ad-libs. I love when ad-libs harmonize with the main vocal.
you melt into me like how autumn leaves get pushed down by snow. You and I were winning the lottery. You and I were winning the lottery. You and I.
Man, I could do like 10 episodes on this song. I shouldn't have chosen second. Adam's a big fan of vocoder. I, as well, am a big fan of vocoder. I don't use it often, but the reason is because it's a very tough thing to find an incredible spot for without it just being like, oh, I'm using vocoder. But this song had so many opportunities. In this bridge, these oohs that you hear are actually vocoder. They're not like tracked oohs like the end of the song.
Quiet ride home, and it's spoken from your eyes, but the words are buried still. Then it's a quiet ride home.
Oh.
And it's spoken from your.
And what's nice is when I do crazy layers of harmonies like this, the goal is almost always to give it a vocoder vibe, but with a vocal.
And it's spoken from your eyes, but the words are buried still.
So blending something like that with a vocoder just gives you this lush insaneness.
And it's spoken from your eyes, but the words are buried still. Then it's a quiet ride home. Bodies like leaves, both of us high.
And then this crazy amount of vocoder at the end, just doing the last line of the song, where
I make myself numb till I can't feel it.
oh, so nice. I felt the vocoder at the end there didn't really give us the melody wrap up I wanted, so I had this little out of room vocal put in there, where I left the U87 where it was and had Adams move basically about 15 feet away from it.
Make myself numb till all I can feel is you.
Yeah, I love that. It adds so much to that vocoder.
Make myself numb till all I can feel is you.
So earlier on, I said I wasn't doing any EQ to the vocal. That's not entirely true. I actually did top-down EQ on the bus in this song, which I didn't even know I did. Not this Pro Q. That's just taking care of a little bit of annoying happening up the top. But yeah, I've never done this in a mix. So I guess what happened was I got all the vocals sitting where I wanted. I'm assuming this is what I did. Got all the vocals sitting where I wanted, and then was like, you know what? I want a little bit more out of it. So I boosted top end by a couple dB. And I think that's, oh my God. And then a roll off. That's literally the only EQ in this song on the vocals. And I probably went really light EQ wise on the way in with the Neve. So really this song, what you're hearing is just that, a fairly natural version of Adam's voice, not over EQ'd, not over anything, just, a little bit of de-ester to take care of S's, some compression to hold them in place, and then a bit of top end just to make everything nice. Very almost like old school way of EQing a song.
Bodies like leaves, both of us high, words come out slow. Our bodies leave, both of us high, words come out slow. You melt into me like how autumn leaves.
It goes to show, like, a lot of guys always talk about, oh, what do you do to a backing vocal that's different to like a regular vocal? Honestly, I don't do anything different when I'm working unless I absolutely need to. And in a song like this, I just felt that, like I said, like these VMRs are here doing nothing, but these arouser settings are probably the same. Yeah, these arouser settings are the same on both the main and the backing vocal, probably across, a different vocalist is in parts of this song, and I didn't bother to change that. These oohs and ahs are, differently recorded. And oh, actually, there's a VMR here. I did on the ahs. I wanted them a little spacier, so I did do a bit of 12K boost and a bit of 400 cut there. Oh, and a crazy roll off. Yes, I only did a center double in this song. I'm not a huge fan of triples, even for poppy stuff where you want a slick poppy vocal. I don't feel that triples always get the energy a double does. I'm going to play just the mains here for a sec.
Our bodies leave, both of us high, words come out slow.
What I do instead is I'll make here, if you look over here, I've got two different verbs, like sort of like that last session I was showing you, where there's this long verb happening that only kicks in the chorus, quarter note delay. This is the thing I'm doing here, widener with just little micro shift on the first setting. It only kicks in the choruses, I believe, in the song, and the goal is to trick that triple vibe, but keep the excitement and the energy of a double.
Our bodies leave, both of us high, words come out slow. You melt into me like how autumn leaves get pushed down by.
And that's just peppered in there only to widen out that vocal, but you still keep the energy of a stereo double. Of a mono double.
Our bodies leave, both of us high, words come out slow. You melt into me like how autumn leaves get pushed down by snow. You and I were winning the lottery. You and I were winning the lottery.
Full disclosure, these days I will track 3 and then make the decision later because I don't ever want to keep myself stuck in a corner. But honestly, if it's a time thing, which it wasn't a time thing on this song, it was purely a decision I made, I will always just double the vocal.
You melt into me like how autumn leaves get pushed down by snow. You and I were winning the lottery. You and I were winning the lottery. You and I were winning the lottery. You and I. Myself not till I can.
Yeah, and then we'll talk a little bit about the actual automation process here. I did a lot of similar things I do here that I'm constantly doing in my mixes. I'll draw in my broad automation just to build dynamic, feeding into into my mix bus. So drums, bass, and guitar. They get louder when what's that? One of those things is, this lead drops out. I didn't want to lose the volume of that chug, so it boosts up a little bit there.
I wanna waste away with you. Make myself numb till all I can feel is you.
When you want big parts to hit, the easiest way is, to
Till all I can feel is you.
turn them up just a little bit. How am I quantizing guitars and bass? Always by hand. I never do guitar or bass quantization with plugins, like any time stretch or anything like that. Ben was an incredible bassist. I got exactly out of him what I wanted, and what I didn't get, I, fixed up like I always would. There's a really good chance that he played a lot of that exactly like that, and I just, if I had to fix something, I did fix something. Same with the guitars. In fact, this song's guitars probably are some of the most loosely played guitars I've done on recordings because they're that type of band. They don't need to be right to the grid. Obviously, palming and things like that, I'm always taking care of. But a good musician's goal is to play on time. So when you've got a band chock full of them,
I can feel. Bodies like clean.
find transients either tab to transient. Yeah, usually tab to transient. The way I compress bass guitar on the way in allows me to edit it really easily. I can hit almost any major transient I need to when I'm tabbing through, grab it and roll with it. And like I said, this song was all DI, so the DIs of these look roughly like the bass DI. So I would go through and tab and then roll back a little bit and fill the gap, and then quantize or Beat Detective, fill gaps and crossfade on that afterwards. I try to not edit guitars if I don't have to. I'd prefer to just, get the parts the way they are. Only times I'm ever doing editing like that is if I need, if we're under a time constraint, I'm just like, you know what, no, we got to keep rolling. Let's do this.
Terrified with the bets I made.
I realized I actually did do a bit more guitar EQ than I thought. I guess this is just taking out broad frequencies across the entire mix of guitars. And then SSL channel, boosting a bit of top end on that, cutting a bit more lows. And I think that's all I'm doing there. Yep. What's the signal chain for the guitars in 11? Let's find out, because I do not remember. Take a peek at these rhythms really quick. Ooh, this is actually going to be fun. I'm excited to show this. Oh, there we go. I disappeared for a sec. I'm excited to show this. Am I automating it? No, I'm not. Okay. The guitars on this. Why do I... to go into a different bus. I'm going to pull these out. Give me a sec. All right, let's take a look. We got... do a bit more than that. So these tape head settings are not this is not the same stuff that I was doing on the final guitar. But I've got this plugin going into the guitar. Just this is a free plugin, I'm pretty sure, Mercurial TSC, set to mod because it doesn't suck out low end. And I'm not actually doing any drive boost with this. I'm using it more as an EQ knob a little bit. And then let's take a look at this. We got the Soldano boy on here. Off axis almost always sounds better to me. If I'm miking a guitar cab, I'm off axising it. If I'm using a plugin, there's chances are I'm going to off axis the mic if I get the opportunity. Kills a bit of the annoyingness right away. Save some time later. Classic 30 cab, an SL100 set to drive, which I guess is the beefiest version of it. Yeah, exactly. Drive, crunch, and clean. And I think it's the same on the other side. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Classic 30 cab, a little bit of speaker breakup just to make it feel a little more real. And the 409, which 409, I owned a 409 for a little while. One of my favorite microphones on guitar cabs. I think one of the reasons I stopped recording guitar cabs was because I no longer had a 409 available to me. Yeah, and tape head adds that nice little hair to those guitars that I want out of them that I'm not getting. Leads on this. Lead DI. Oh, you know what? The leads actually might be... taking a look at this. Leads and overdrives might actually be the Kemper. Or that riff. No, never mind. Yeah, actually, I think that's a Kemper tone. I did keep some Kemper stuff. I think all I replaced was the rhythm guitars with that plugin because I felt like I wasn't getting what I wanted. Yes, my little junk folder down here. Yeah, here's the original rhythms. I'm not going to show them to you guys because if you guys say you like them better, I'll be super sad. Yeah. Am I doing anything interesting in this mix? Not particularly different than Now, what I normally do in a mix, it just goes to show how far production can solve so many problems before you get into mixing even. Like, I'm doing these to break down the mixes and for you guys to see what's up, but I'm also doing it to show you that when you get into a similarity of styles, a lot of the times the tracking that you do, the production that you do will direct the song a lot more than the actual mix will. You know, I might have reached for like an amp sim here or, you know, changed, you know, a certain sample there. But really, the essence of the song stayed intact from beginning to end. And that's sort of the important goal. Again, you know, like a rouser on drum bus. Gluing it into place. A little bit of cleanup when I needed it. And yeah, Kramer tape just sort of pinning it all into place. Yeah, I'm not doing anything else particularly crazy in this song. Like I said, automation is super important. So, you know, in that crazy ending when everything goes nuts, the drums start turning down while the room mics start turning up so the drums didn't overload everything. Song sounds great. Anything different you do now listening back? Yeah, I feel like that with every mix. I feel the drums on this mix are a little hi-fi, and not that there's a problem with that. I just feel they're lacking the room depth that I would probably apply to a mix these days. These days I'm running like an extra set of fake room mics constantly just to really help even out the sound. I use different amp sims these days. However, I like the sound of these, so I'm not going to say that that's something I do different. Bass-wise, I absolutely wouldn't change a thing. Vocal-wise, I absolutely wouldn't change a thing at all. I think these are some of the best sounding vocals I've ever recorded in my life. And yeah, but mix-wise, would I change anything? I'd probably solve a few more problems before, you know, like here on this guitar bus, I'm doing so much. You know, I'm doing an overall boost of EQ and, you know, taking care of a few more frequencies. This might still be on a guitar bus, but I'd probably go through and brighten what I'd want to brighten on the individual tracks instead of relying on the drum bus for that. And then vocals. I mean, it's weird because I did this broad EQ here on the entire vocal chain. I've never done anything like this in a mix, and I forgot I did it until I pulled it up. I don't think I would have done that. I probably would have just, you know, when I decided on the vocal EQ, say I even like solved it by doing it on this chain, I probably would have just copied this to all the individual channels. I don't know why. I'm not a big fan of top-down mixing, so whenever I go back to a mix and realize I did some sort of top-down mixing like that, I'm kind of figuring out why. However, I also remember that when I'm mixing a song, I'm not looking for some sort of formula or method. I'm looking to create just a mix of what I worked on. So if that means doing things like this while you track, you know, don't be bummed when you look back because clearly it solved the problem at the time. Yeah. So that is Lottery by Romancer. What are favorite amp sims at the moment, especially for this kind of music? Honestly, STL Tone Hub is one of my favorite amp sims ever, as well as STL Tonality. You know what? Let's do this little bonusy thing at the end here. I'm going to pull up these rhythm tracks. I'm going to kill the original amp sims that are happening here. I'm just going to make sure their volumes are the same before doing anything else. That doesn't really help, but yeah. And then let's do this. I think the world needs a bounce with only vocals. Yeah, I think it would be like a sick remix version of this song of just the vocals. What packs do you use on STL? I almost always am using the Lee Malia pack, the Bring Me the Horizon guy, and the John Feldman pack. Let's do Tonality first, though, because I was pretty obsessed with Tonality for a while before I moved on to Tone Hub. I'm just gonna go through presets I use that I've made over the years. let's start with that. I don't remember the guitars that were tracked. I think one of the rhythms was Riley's rhythm was probably an SG, because he's a lefty, so he only had a couple guitars, or a Godin guitar that he has. And then the lead guitar on this might have been my Telecaster or a Telecaster with an Evertune in the bridge, because these guitars sound super in tune. Let's take a peek. These are really bright. I do like bright guitars. Let's go to the chorus. Something fun and big. For this demonstration, I'm going to kill the vocals just so we can listen to the guitars. If I particularly like that more or less. I mean, I would do a little bit more. Let's take a peek here. Yeah, big old cleanup sesh really quick.
I was come out slow. You melt into me like how autumn leaves.
I love those. I think those guitars sound great.
Bodies like leaves, both of
Obviously a very different vibe.
I can feel it. You. All I wanna feel is you. Bodies like leaves, both of us high words come out.
That's STL Tonality, Howard Benson. Hands down one of the best plugins ever for just a quick, gnarly guitar tone. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's really easy to dial in guitar tones for me with amp sims that I'm like super stoked on. Let's take a look at Tone Hub. Tone Hub. Tone Hubbin'. It is an angry plugin. I'm going to go right away to, okay, 800 Bright. 800 2.0 is probably one of the ones I've been using more these days. That's such a bright guitar. That's already nice. It works with the Q settings I've got rolling.
I can feel it. You. All I wanna feel is you. Bodies like leaves, both of us high words come out slow. You melt into me like how autumn leaves get pushed down by snow. Words come slow. You melt into me like how autumn.
Super like that on. So this, it's a little aggressive on the tail.
Bodies like leaves, both of us
Yeah, honestly, STL have always made incredible Kemper packs. I'm demoing all these right now to see what else I want to buy, but the Lee Malia one and the Feldman one are just like top plugins in my opinion. This is like the future of amp sims to me. This tracing stuff, I wish they talked about it more because it's like incredible technology. And like I'm not disappointed in that tone at all. Debatably like that new guitar tone better than the old one. And just for shits and gigs, let's take a look at the Feldy Soldano I was rocking. One of these is... oh my god, so much louder. Yeah, I'm going to start from scratch with this. I'm not going to do it on here. Give me a sec. Nope, you're not John Feldman. Where the hell did he go? There he is. That Runaway one's really nice on a telly. So much is solved by just angling a microphone. Great tone already. A little loud. Let's drop that into the mix there. Might be a little aggressive in some spots, but really that is a great tone already. Yeah, I'd probably turn the gain down a bit. So yeah, I'd strongly recommend any STL amp sim if you're gonna stick with amp sims. All right, I'm gonna call it there. That is Lottery by Romancer, inside the mix, or mix breakdown as I'm calling it. Okay, if you guys have any last questions, I think that would be sort of like a good time to ask them. If not, then I think I'm gonna wrap up. But before I do, I just want to say, please subscribe if you're digging what this is. I'm trying to keep this rolling every Tuesday and Thursday where I dive into another mix of mine. And yeah, if you like what you're hearing, subscribe. If you want to see a couple little things I do while I'm in the studio, check out my Instagram at Sam Guayana. If you want to see me be a goof on the internet, check out my Twitter, same handle. I pretty much use the same handle for everything. And yeah, if you want to talk mixing, if you want some feedback on some stuff, if you want to just vibe and hang out, let me know. Just shoot me a DM, shoot me a message, and yeah. Thanks for checking this out again. This has been Interactive Mix Breakdown Part Dos. Adam, what are the odds I bounce those vocals? I don't know. Text me. We'll talk about it. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. And goodbye.